Hey y'all, and welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. I'm Tim Nichols of MrMaple.com. We're a small mail order business that mail orders trees directly to your door. And we do over 1,000 varieties of Japanese maples. So check us out. We add at least 10 new trees every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. So there's always something new and interesting come through the pipeline at Mr. Maple. Now, one of the questions we always get with Japanese maples is Japanese beetles. What do I do about Japanese beetles on my Japanese maples? And this is a question we get every year around this time. And we like putting out relevant videos that can help you through these processes to understand what should I do, what should I make sure that I don't do, and how do I get my Japanese maples to look beautiful and thrive in my landscape and garden. So Japanese beetles, it's one of those things where they're very regional. It's not that the Japanese beetles are always very regional, but they have regional tastes. And so in your area, Japanese beetles may not be a problem even though there are Japanese beetles nearby. They may prefer all the hydrangeas. They may prefer all the vegetables and not focus on your Japanese maples. But in your area, it may be that they've just developed that taste for Japanese maples. So what do I not do? The biggest mistake people have is they start setting up all those bug traps of Japanese beetles. Well, what happens is it attracts a lot of Japanese beetles into the area because those pheromones attract Japanese beetles that come in. And while they do take out a large portion of the Japanese beetles, it may be the case that you're attracting more into your garden than you originally had to begin with. Because with those beetles comes pheromones. The females release pheromones that attract all the males in. So when you have dead female beetles with those pheromones, you may continue to attract more and more males into the area, and they may start munching on other things in your garden as they're coming to those traps. So always keep that in mind, that if you have just a small problem, those traps are made for the large problems. I've got tons and tons and I need to get rid of them. If you just have a Japanese beetles affecting a small number of plants, the best thing you can do is pick those bugs off, throw them into a bucket of water or into a bucket or something that you can put a lid on, and take care of those plants. Now the problem with just doing that is that the female Japanese beetles release pheromones on the plants, and they're constantly attracting males even after they're gone. So the males will come sit down on those plants and munch on those plants while they're waiting for those females to come back. And you may have already killed those female Japanese beetles. So the very best thing you can do is get some soapy water. And what you want to do with that soapy water is spray down your plant if you've got a small plant. Not only the top, but also the undersides of the leaves. You're trying to wash off that pheromone as much as you can with soapy water, not antibacterial soap, because that can be detrimental to the Japanese maple. And if you wash off those pheromones on your Japanese maple and you remove the Japanese beetles, often what will happen is that the Japanese beetles that are coming into your area or local environment will find something else to eat on, like your vegetables or your hydrangeas. Because Japanese maples, while they're one of the things that a Japanese beetle may eat on, they're not necessarily the favorite. They're just something out there that they can eat on. And so if you can direct them towards the other plants, maybe even some of the weeds out in your garden, that would be the best case scenario, right? Now on larger Japanese maples out in the landscape that may be infested more with Japanese beetles with a larger population, you may have to take a little more drastic measures. Using chemicals is always my last resort. One, because they require PPE, that's protection, like sometimes they require masks and goggles and gloves. And so you always have to take extra steps with that, but also putting those chemicals out in the environment can affect the environment. So it's always my last resort. But something like Triazicide by Spectracide, which you can find at most department stores like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, you can take that and spray that in a hose and sprayer according to what the label says and using the proper protections to protect you from the chemicals. And you can spray that across the tree and kill the Japanese beetles that are on that Japanese maple. Now, after a few days have gone by, after you've sprayed the Triazicide by Spectracide out across the plant, then you can come back and use a soapy water and spray across that plant as well, because you want to wash those pheromones off that those females have been laying to attract the males. And once you've done that, hopefully it'll start to take care of your Japanese maple or Japanese beetle problem on your Japanese maples. And that's a great way to do with your larger Japanese maples. So the very best thing you can do, remove the beetles when there's a small problem, and wash your leaves off with soap and water. And you can literally just take some soap in a bucket, mix it up, and then spray it in a hose and sprayer across your plant, and that will do a fantastic job of washing those pheromones off of your Japanese maple so it quits attracting more and more of those Japanese beetles. If you do have a really large problem though, those traps may be necessary. So those traps are always the last resort, and people often pull them out as the first resort, and you may be attracting all the Japanese beetles from your neighbor's yard to come munch on your plants before they find their way into the trap. So keep that in mind. I hope these tips have really helped you with your Japanese beetles on your Japanese maples in your garden. If you've liked this video, make sure to like it, share this with your gardening friends, and as always, make sure you sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple.com, because not only is sharing a great way to promote this channel, but shopping on MrMaple.com allows us to continue to put out more and more videos that can really help you in your garden and landscape. Take care, God bless, and have a great day.